we brought up his name very briefly right before we went on the show, and my dad made reference to the Steelers and this chaos. For those of us old enough, if you really look at, okay, the run the Steelers have had with head coaches, and every one of the following has won at least one Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But you had Chuck Noll there forever, who really established the identity of the Steelers, the Steel Curtain, all the Hall of Fame players. The Raiders get the line commitment to excellence, but over the long haul, no one has had a greater commitment to excellence in the NFL over the last 40, 50 years than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
No doubt.
Okay? So you got Chuck Noll. Then they go to Bill Cowher. And then they go to Mike Tomlin. Tomlin's been there, 14, 15 years now. And, I mean, it has been as smooth a transition from one guy. It doesn't mean that every season has been easier, every season has been great, or every season has gone to the playoffs. In Tomlin's case, the most recent head coach and current head coach, I think he commands such incredible respect from his players. He's tough. He's smart. He's hard-nosed. People around here think the Steelers at times, they cross that line of dirty and clean play, and I think there's a lot to that argument. That doesn't mean it's Tomlin's fault. And we just saw you had a player, KZ, who's just been booted for the rest of the year for the cheap shot on Pittman over the weekend. But rarely, even in good times and bad, has there been the chaos that's going on right now in Pittsburgh? I mean, there is a lot happening there. They get their quarterback. They're 7-4, like you talked about, Reed, 3 weeks ago. They're getting ready to play the likes of New England and Arizona, and you're thinking, oh, man, by the time the Bengals see them, and then the Bengals, and by the time the Bengals see them again, they're going to be 9-4 or 9-5. Well, we know what's happened. They lost to the Cardinals. They lost to New England. There is chaos. Quarterback knocked out. Backup guy comes in. He's benched. Now they're starting a third. But the George Pickens thing is the story in Pittsburgh right now. And it seems like it never ends. For those of you that don't know, Pickens is an enormously talented wide receiver. There is no debate about that. I think he's an Alabama guy, right? Georgia guy. SEC guy. And, he has some issues with how often he's getting passes, and there are a lot of those wide receiver divas out there. And the Steelers' offense is awful. And you can understand a player's frustration, who's a wide receiver, of not getting the ball and all these kinds of things. He's had his ups and downs too, Pickens, by the way, when they do get him on the field. But then all of a sudden, he's taking plays off. There's video of taking plays off. He wasn't blocking anybody when he had a chance to help get a running back into the end zone. The week before, Tomlin said he had a meeting with Pickens. Pickens comes out yesterday and said there was never any meeting. Now, who are you more prone to believe? Mike Tomlin or Pickens?
I have a hard time believing Mike Tomlin has ever told a lie in his life, Tom. He seems like a no-nonsense guy. George Pickens, even in college, had all these problems. I don't know what it is. You talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and really, as much as I hate them, their commitment to excellence, and it's been that way. That's why they are one of the best franchises in NFL's history. But for some reason, over the past decade, they've had this lingering thing with their skill players, right? Antonio Brown, obviously, everything that's happened in his life. Le'Veon Bell, that was a messy breakup over there. And now you got George Pickens, who really, since he's been in the NFL, and before that actually, has been just a major thorn in the side. For a franchise that prides itself on a commitment of excellence, there's a growing trend with their skill positions that they kind of just, for lack of a better word, are a little crazy. There's just so much noise around their skill position rooms, and it's really uncharacteristic of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And especially as good as Mike Tomlin has been, never having a losing season is incredible.
Yeah.
And somehow finding a way to win games through all this madness, it's crazy. I guess, the only thing I can think of is that when you have superstars in the room, You have to be able to, I don't want to say humble them, but you have to make sure the playing field's level with everybody. That's with the coaches, that's with the staff, that's with the opponents, and clearly that's just not there in Pittsburgh. I don't know how Mike Tomlin's done it, not being able to control any of these guys, but nonetheless, I guess that's a testament to him.
It's so hard. I truly believe, I think this about baseball, I think this about every sport, that the front of your jersey does matter. Who you play for matters. You're seeing that. We saw that our whole life with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's kind of uncrumbling before our eyes. And you're seeing that currently with the Baltimore Ravens. Like, it doesn't matter how many injuries the Baltimore Ravens have. As long as John Harbaugh's there, they're continue to be a tough franchise. It didn't really start before Harbaugh got there. But just as hard as it is to build it up, it's hard to tear down, too. And we're seeing it kind of crumble before our eyes.
Yeah.
Big Ben goes away. They have all these problems with all these guys. I didn't even mention like the Chase Claypools of the world that have just had story after story come out about how crazy that their locker room can be at times. And I'm scared to say that it's sad to see what has gone on in Pittsburgh, because it's not sad to see as a Bengals fan, and I certainly don't want to say anything before we play a tough game in Pittsburgh this weekend. But really, it's unfolding, it's unraveling before our eyes, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, look, Pickens draws harsh criticism for what happens on the blocking play, and he comes out and says, "Hey, look, I'm trying to prevent the Tank Dell situation, right, where." He gets rolled up on in a similar kind of situation and doesn't want to get hurt. It did look like there was no effort involved, and there wasn't any effort involved. None whatsoever. So he takes the easy road, Pickens does. He blasts the media, says these are guys that have never played the game, they never will, and they never will have full comprehension on what it's like to play football and while they do these kinds of things, okay? But you go back to the game before, a week ago, Pickens had these, in-game just blow-ups, right? And he has a meeting with Mike Tomlin in which it was described that they weren't solution-oriented blow-ups. That's according to Tomlin. He said, we had a great conversation ahead of the Colts game. So then this Colts things happen, right? Okay. Pickens comes out, and he says, last week we played the Colts. I ain't never had no conversation with Coach T. But let's get better and let's keep working. Now, they're saying, the Steelers PR saying later, that Pickens was referring to a meeting with Coach Tomlin after the Indy game and not the one that occurred before the Indy game. But this whole thing has just completely spiraled out of control in Pittsburgh. It makes me wonder, Casey. I mean, 90% of me says there is no way on God's earth that the Pittsburgh Steelers would make a change at head coach. Okay? But because it's more than just Pickens, it's the examples you guys just gave, right?
Right.
Even Najee Harris a little bit earlier this season. Now you got Big Ben, right, on his podcast kind of chiming in, blaming the players for basically, caring more about me than the team in the front of the jerseys like you talked about, Reed. And it's more than one guy. It's more than two. And we can all say every one of those guys is a clown. That's the easy thing to say. Mm-hmm. I'm not in that locker room. I don't know who's a clown and who's not a clown. But the bottom line is it's happening a lot more now in Pittsburgh. They haven't won a playoff game in forever. Forever.
I mean, I would argue that it's been happening since Mike Tomlin walked in the door. I mean, look at Santonio Holmes, Mike Wallace, Martavis Bryant, Deontay Johnson now.
But let me interrupt you right now real quick. When you're talking about some of those guys, you're talking about some major league clowns.
Right. I'm a
Santonio. I loved him at Ohio State, but come on. Some of the stuff. And Bryant, he was out of the league for 4 years. Right? Some of these other guys. Come on.
Plaxico Burress. there's so many
guys
Steelers
shot himself.
Yeah, this is just the Steelers receivers.
Right.
There's a ton of other examples of just really crazy I shouldn't say really crazy. That's insensitive. But just really sad situations for these players to be putting themselves in. And, I think honestly it is a bit of the coaching staff. I think there is something wrong there. I think Mike Tomlin, you look at people want to praise Mike Tomlin. I have this this crazy graphic. I don't have it here on screen, but I do have it on my phone because I think it was after the Patriots game. Someone posted this statistics of Mike Tomlin. And I'm just going to read these out to you. 2007, one and done at home to David Garrard. Blown fourth quarter lead. 2008, Tom Brady torn ACL all year. Beat Chargers at home without leading rusher LaDainian Tomlinson. Beat rookie Joe Flacco at home. Beat the 9-7 Cardinals with a 40-year-old quarterback, Kurt Warner, including a blown 16-point fourth quarter lead. 2009, no playoffs. 4 out of the 7 losses against sub-500 teams. 2010, beat Joe Flacco at home, including a blown fourth quarter lead. Beat Mark Sanchez at home. Lost to Aaron Rodgers and the 6-seed Packers. 2011, one and done against Tim Tebow's 8-8 Broncos. Yep. 2012, no playoffs. 4 out of the 8 losses against below 500 teams. 2013, no playoffs. 3 out of the 8 losses against 500 teams. One and done at home to Joe Flacco's 6-seeded Ravens in 2014. 2015, beat backup A.J. McCarron. Lost to 39-year-old Peyton Manning. It just goes on and on.
Right.
It's their track record is really not that great. And for some reason, we want to praise him. And he won that Super Bowl, and everyone pretty much knows this at this point. He won that roster with the he won that Super Bowl with the former coach's roster.
Okay, but he still won the Super Bowl.
I guess. But he had a lot of help, is what I'm saying. He had it all laid out in front of him already. There was already great talent there. And I don't know. I think he gets too much praise.
My argument against that is that he has had. You know how hard it is to have 0 losing seasons
Right,
in
in
the NFL?
15 years, and playing in the toughest division in the sport.
Correct.
That's tough.
That's my. I think Mike Tomlin's still one of the best coaches in the NFL. If he left anywhere, I'd hire him immediately, because I think he's that good. Now there is clearly some sort of. I don't want to say there's a leadership issue, but it's evident that when some of these stars get here, they think they're the king of the roost. And they've yet to be told otherwise. And I guess that's just a trend in Pittsburgh, and that's how it's been. That's how it'll be under Mike Tomlin. But I don't question his skills as a football coach in this league.
Mr. Mo actually just put in a great chat that I think one guy that we don't talk enough about is Mike McCarthy, who got ran out of Green Bay, even being insanely successful.
Yep.
Won a Super Bowl early on in his tenure at Green Bay, and then they just things kind of mellowed out there, so they got rid of him. Now he's in Dallas, and he's winning games left and right. Is Mike Tomlin just a Mike McCarthy in a place that doesn't fire head coaches? That's a very fair question.
That is a great question. And look, Pete, there are so many pros and cons. Bill Parcells often gets credited with that line, I'm paraphrasing now, about, once you're somewhere for 10 years, you lose, the voice loses its effect in the locker room, okay? Right. Well, that actually wasn't Bill Parcells. He was quoting that off of, and I'm not going to recall the guy's name, but it was a longtime general manager with the Detroit Red Wings of the NHL who was the first one to say that. Now, that was said, and even Parcells quoting that was said at a time where there wasn't the player movement that we have now. You could probably go inside that Steelers locker room, or any NFL locker room for that matter, and you would find very few players that have been in that locker room with that same team for probably more than 4, 5, 6 years. Mm-hmm. And the overwhelming majority have been there less time than that. So I don't know if that holds, but I got to tell you, and I have incredible respect for Mike Tomlin. I've been in many production meetings with him. No nonsense. Man of very high character. It's hard to punch holes in the Tomlin resume and the Tomlin as a human being. And I'm not going to punch holes in it. But I do think, even though there's no way on God's earth it's going to happen, I do think that it might be time to make a change in Pittsburgh.
Well, hey there! Thanks for watching that video. I hope you liked it. I'll tell you what, if you like that one, you're going to love this one, and you're going to really like this one down here. You're going to like them both. Like, comment, subscribe, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. Thank you very much. Have a great day.